Over to Mrs. Karen Sandoe.
Good morning, folks. Thanks for coming out to take a look at our Honey Hill Farm 6-horse hitch. Maybe we could do that turn. Right, this is a 6-horse hitch of Belgian draft horses. Belgians are the most popular breed of draft horses that we find in use today. You'll also be familiar with Hertford horses, and everybody is familiar with the Budweiser Clydesdale. This is the same style of hitch that Budweiser does, minus the deer and the Dalmatian. We've been showing these horses for about 18 years. My husband Penn and I own a farm in Myerstown, Pennsylvania, which is in the southeast corner of the state. We're north of Lancaster and east of Hershey. That gives you sort of an idea of where to pinpoint us. We've got 10 Belgian geldings on our farm. We brought 9 with us today, and we're showing 6 at the moment. This is a hitch that we show at almost every show we go to. It's a real popular hitch. We often have some very stiff competition in this class with 6 horses. One of our favorite ones to show. In the typical show, we would also have classes for a 4-horse hitch or a 3-horse hitch, which is also called a unicorn. That's a team of horses hitched to the wagon and one individual horse out in front of them. That was a little tricky to hitch because that lead horse in the unicorn is only connected to the back 2 horses with straps. So he's got lots of freedom out there. You need to put a horse out there that you can trust and will really listen to you. Because he could turn around and look at you while you're driving, and that's never good. There are also classes for 2 horses, that's called a team class, and classes for 1 horse and a 2-wheel cart class. Show geldings at our farm, but other people choose to hitch all mares. Some people will mix mares and geldings together. It's very rare that you'll see a stallion in a hitch like this because their behavior is just not predictable enough. It sometimes can be a little dangerous when you've got a lot of hitches in the ring at one time to have a stallion in there with unfamiliar horses. So you don't often see that. Our horses range in age from 4 to about 12. What Kevin's doing right now is called up to grade or reverse maneuver. When we're on the show, the judge will require a couple of laps when you first come in the ring, and then they'll reverse you on the diagonal across the ring, and then you come back the other way. The purpose for that is so the judge can see both sides of the hitch. Prevents you from hiding one of your lesser quality horses on the rail side of your hitch so the judge won't see him. Can't get away with that. You'll see both sides of the hitch. We also find sometimes that a horse won't like to be driven on the rail side of the hitch. He's a little nervous about being that close to the rail. And that way a judge would see that as well. So we practice going both ways when we're at home in our ring and everything, so they're used to that. They know what it feels like to be right up against the rail. The wagon that we're using is called a freight-style wagon. Back in the days before tractor trailers, this was how merchandise and goods got delivered into the city. Okay, while they stop in the middle, I want to talk to you a little bit about the harness. You'll notice on each horse, there's a leather strap that's attached to his collar, right here, and runs back the length of the horse, and is attached to a piece of metal called a double tree. Each horse has one of those. That is what allows the horse to pull the weight of the wagon, or whatever load he's pulling. They actually push the shoulders into the collar, and because that's attached to the collar, everything goes forward. The last team down here, you'll notice they've got an extra piece on their harness. It goes around their hips right here. This is called the britchin. They're the only ones that have that because they haven't got an extra job in this hitch. They're the team that's responsible for backing up the wagon when it comes time to do that. They are the only team that can back up the wagon. The others don't have a friction on. And because they're hooked with poles in the middle, they can't do the backing. The wheel team has that responsibility. One of the things that a judge is going to look for when we're in the show ring is he's going to look at those traces, those straps of leather, and see at what angle are they hanging? How much tension is on them? You see this one's a little droopy right now since he's standing still. This one's not drooping quite so much because of the way he's standing. But when they're going, we want the angle of those traces to be exactly the same on each team. That tells us that each team is pulling the same amount of weight. If we've got one set of traces that's sloppy and drooping and just flopping all over the place, and the next set of traces is pulled so tight they're almost shooting skyward, we know we've got a problem. That means the team with the droopy traces isn't doing anything. And the team with the traces that are tight as can be, they're doing most of the work. We want to even it out. We want each team to be pulling their load. So that's an important part to look for. If you're at a show and you're wondering what is the judge looking for, that's one thing he's looking for, is everybody working together. When we practice at home, we don't often hitch a 6 to practice. We will work the horses by teams, 2 horses at a time, or maybe by 4s, and we'll switch them out. We'll try them with different partners and see which horses get along the best or move the best together. One of the things the judge is looking for is, do the horses work as a unit? Is each team working together? When you look at them across the hitch, does it look like it's only one horse? Are they moving their feet the same? Do they lift their legs the same height? So we'll practice with that. 2 horses or 4 horses at a time. Work them around to make sure that they are in the best spot for their personality and their ability. Not every horse gets along with his partner. You've got 2 horses that don't like each other and they're biting each other when you're trying to show them. That's not good. You want them to get along and be friends. There are names for each team in the hitch. The team that's closest to the wagon, the biggest horses, the ones that do the backing, they're called the wheel team. That's the place that we want to put our largest, strongest horses. And then we work down inside. The middle team is called the swing team. Their job is to help pull the load, but they also have to have a very laid-back personality to have horses behind them and horses in front of them. You'd be okay with that. Not every horse likes that. At one point, we did have a horse who was convinced he was not to be in that swing position. He didn't want anybody in front of him. And he was very unhappy there. The team in the front is called the lead team. They need to be the horses that are the most animated, that lift their legs the highest, that have their heads up and look like they are really in charge here. They really want to want to do this job. They're the first team that the judge is going to see and sort of sets his mood for what he's going to see with the rest of your hitch. So you want leaders that are very showy and have a really good lead attitude. Notice the spacing between the teams is also even. If you've got one team that's not pulling quite right, or you don't have your driving lines adjusted quite right, you might have a short space between the front 2 teams and a larger space between the back 2 teams. That's not good either. You want it exactly even, as close as you can get. Another thing the judge is going to look for is what we call head step. We don't want to see a draft horse that's got his head way down, as we would call counting ants. We want him to be proud to be out there. We want those heads up, we want the ears alert, and we want them moving forward. He's also going to look at their foot action. We don't want them just trotting along. Their show horse teams to be proud, they need to show their stuff. So we're looking at how high do they lift their knees. Notice the lead team right now is perfectly in step. That's really great. We don't always get that, but when we do, that's the goal. That means they're moving together beautifully. One of the ways that you can help to ensure that you get that is by choosing horses for a team that are the same body build, that have the same kind of stride. Some horses have a longer stride. When they lift their feet, they stretch out, take the next step. Other horses have a shorter stride and have a choppier step. You don't want to put those together because you're not going to travel the same and even going to look right. With each team, one horse is the lead horse, or what we call the near side horse, and his partner is the off-side horse. As you see in the driver's seat, the left one is the near side horse, and the one on the right is the off-side. Those terms come from carriage driving days. When you would be going down the road, the near side horse means the one nearest to the center of the road. And the off-side horse is the one that's off to the side. You very often would put your smaller horse in the near side because of the way that the road was sloped for water drainage. So the near side horse, if he was shorter, working with a taller off-side horse, would end up being pretty even going down the road. At a show, one of the maneuvers we're required to do is to back up. That shows the judge whether or not this hitch is going to listen to the driver. The driver has control over them and can get them to do what he wants them to do. Let's see how we're doing today. Are you going to back up? Can you back up? Okay, what we're looking for here is everybody backing up as a unit. Sometimes the leaders, sometimes the wheel king is the only one that's listening. And they'll back up and sort of drag everybody behind them. Like, oh yes, we're backing up. We want everybody to be listening, and everybody to step back at the same time. If you hear Kevin talking to them, the horses need to be trained to listen to the messages they're getting through the driving lines that are connected to their bits in their mouth. They also need to be trained to go with voice commands. You heard his whistle, that means step out. We use the traditional terms of G for turn right and Ha for turn left. You might hear him also say something like come around, or come G, come Ha, that means we're turning. Or step G, that means I don't want you to turn, I want you to just step over. So that's all part of the training that happens on a daily basis at home. They need to learn those terms before they're ready for the show. They also need to know their names. When you're driving 6 or 8 horses, with a 6-horse hitch, you're about 40 feet from the driver's hands to the nose of the lead team. When you've got an 8-horse hitch, it's about 48 feet. That's like driving a tractor trailer from the rear. And you cannot push them. They have to step out when you call their names and tell them to go. In addition, say a horse in the middle isn't doing his job and he's sort of dogging it a little bit. Kevin calls his name. He needs to be trained well enough that he knows, I better shape up here, I'm in trouble. And he'll step up and do what he's supposed to do. So they must know their names. You'll often see their ears turn back when they hear their name right away. Driving today is Kevin Tempest. He is our farm manager and trainer. With him is our son, Lucas Sandoe, who also works on the farm with us. And in the middle is Dr. Ann McCrena. She's Penn State faculty, and we want to thank her for the opportunity to come here and show you our horses. She is responsible for that. So we thought we'd give her a treat today and put her on the wagon.